I did 30 days with no sugar. I did 30 days with no carb. Hey everybody, how are you guys doing? I know a lot of you guys have shared that you're kind of going on this 30-day journey with me. You've left some really good tips and tricks in the comments of how you're doing it and what's working for you, what's making it worth it for you. All of that. So keep leaving those because that's really helpful for me just to get some inspiration and ideas as I'm kind of finishing up this challenge. Yay. So week 3, that means I'm at least 21 days in at this point. And it has been going really, really well. I think the number one thing that has been surprising to me so far is how few sugar cravings I've had. I mean, I want sweetness in my coffee. I have had a couple of days, my goodness, if I could just add some sweetener, it would be a good day. But without it, it's still been okay. But that's the only thing. It's not like I feel like I'm missing out on a ton of sweets, or even with Halloween candy, I just don't feel like I'm missing out on that much. And so that's been really good. That was kind of a concern of mine, is feeling like I'm missing out. But so far, I don't feel like that's been too bad. Another thing that I thought was really interesting, and sorry if this is oversharing, but the last few months, I feel like I've been super irritable during that kind of PMS window. And this month I had one day where I'm like, oh my goodness, my brain just feels like it's going to explode. But for the most part, I feel like it has been much more tolerable. And I think my husband and children might disagree, but I feel like I've been much more pleasant to be around. So we'll see. Aaron may add a comment here. We'll see how it goes. But I do think that it has just been easier. I have felt more even. I have felt more just in control of my emotions, and even with hormone stuff going on, just not overwhelmed by it. And I got to thinking about my doctor in particular, and I dread calling her because she had put me on a cholesterol medication, and I don't really want to tell her I'm not taking it, even though I'm not taking it. Just because I feel like I'll get that, I'm so disappointed in you. It is what it is. But I was thinking back to a couple appointments that I had with her. One where she specifically said to make sure I'm paying attention to my weight. Like that weight loss was going to be really critical. And this was after we had our 8th kid. So, I mean, I had 7 pregnancies. We have a set of twins. Lots of weight fluctuations. Our oldest is only 13, so that's 7 pregnancies in a very short amount of time, lots of weight fluctuations. But she had said, we need to watch the cholesterol and you have got to lose some weight. And so after that, we did keto, and I lost about 35 pounds over the course of about a year and kept it off. And so the next time I went back, she said, keep working on weight loss, but things are looking a lot better except for that cholesterol. She seemed very encouraged by the weight loss. But the one thing that sticks out to me is she told me to stop running. If I was going to exercise 3 days a week, to stop running and to start lifting weights or working on my core more, which makes sense. But I haven't really done it yet. And I want to say it's because, well, I don't own a fancy set of weights. Clearly, my husband has gym equipment. Like, I could lift weights if I wanted to. But I think my problem is I don't really know what I'm doing. And so Aaron had shown me some core exercises that he uses, so that I'm going to start working on that. But I was wondering, do you guys have any exercises specifically to work your core that you all like, that you can do? And I don't want to say that are easy, because that's not really the point of exercise, but things that you find enjoyable or worthwhile, or even YouTube accounts that I should go check out, anything like that. Because I think next time I have a conversation with her, that's going to be one of those places where I have to have shown some improvement, or she's still not going to be real thrilled with me. Another thing I've been thinking about as we are finishing at the end of week 3 is, what do I do next? So I have one more week of carnivore. What do I want to do after that? Do I want to stay carnivore? Do I want to switch over to a more keto-based diet? Do I want to abandon all hope and go back to eating whatever I want? I don't. Spoiler alert, I'm not going to do that. But I've been trying to research it and trying to think, okay, what do I remember about when I was researching keto the first time? What does that really look like? What foods are absolutely, this is on the keto list? What foods do I need to be careful with? What foods do I really need to avoid? And how strict am I going to be? Am I going to give myself a day where I can eat something off that plan? Or am I going to just stick with it and this is the way I'm eating forever, and well, maybe not forever. That seems a little intense, but you know what I mean? So am I going to pick something where there's flexibility, or am I going to pick something that's more rigid? And what can my self-control handle? So I feel like that's kind of what I'm working on now. And I requested a few books from the library just to get some kind of new inspiration. And, you know, it's easy to say, okay, I'm just going to go back to what I was eating before. That falls into that keto acceptable list, I guess is the word I'm looking for. But I'm kind of looking for some inspiration, some reminders. Why am I doing this? How is it really beneficial to my body? Because without that as a motivator and without that as a reminder, I guess, of why I'm here in the first place, it's hard to stay motivated to stay on a strict diet. So that is my goal, is to kind of refresh my memory before this challenge is over as to what keto is really going to look like for me, and kind of go ahead and get those boundaries in place. That way I can't say, oh, this little bit of this is okay, or this little bit of this is okay every day, because that is kind of my personality, where I will just say, oh, this isn't even enough to worry about. But when it's every day, it kind of is enough to worry about. So that's something that I feel like I need to really work on. Another thing though, as I'm doing that research, is I'm starting to watch some keto channels, and frankly, I'm getting kind of frustrated. There are a lot of products out there and a lot of people who are pushing specific keto products that cost a lot. I mean, okay, so it's probably less than meat. You know, I'm not doing straight carnivore, but it's still like, I saw somebody who had a jar of mayonnaise that was all the right ingredients. I was like, oh, I'll look that up, because you know, that egg salad you're making looks delicious. It's a $10 jar of mayonnaise. And so those kinds of things I'm finding myself just kind of frustrated with, where I want to balance eating well with not diverting all my resources to it, if that makes sense. Like, yes, it is worth an investment. It can't be the only thing, if that makes sense. So what products can I use? What's good enough at a price point that I'm okay with? You know, what things are getting me closer to my goal at a cost that is affordable, you know? And so those are things I'm looking at. One thing that I noticed and that I saw was on some of Dr. Barry's wife's videos, is that there are tons of ideal products. There's tons of really good products out there, you know, your grass-fed, grass-finished meats, and your pasture fresh eggs, and products that are only these certain ingredients, or that omit anything that would be off the diet or less than ideal. But she had said something about, took straight to the camera, I ate Walmart beef. You know, like she was saying that as she was losing weight and doing this diet, she wasn't going out and buying these crazy products. She was buying things that are very accessible and very realistic price points. And that may have changed since then. It was encouraging to me to realize that even the people that do this for a living can acknowledge the fact that while there are ideal products, there's also acceptable products. And so again, even researching, what is that going to look like for me? How am I going to make this work in my life? What really matters? What really matters to me? Those are the things that I have been wrestling with this week, as I know this challenge is coming to an end, and with more flexibility comes a little more responsibility with knowing kind of where I'm going. I have been continuing to eat very similar foods. Like, it hasn't really changed that much. If I'm making chicken for the kids, I might make some extra for me. If Aaron is cooking a steak, he'll cook one for me. So I'm just kind of eating whatever meats are around. That I think breakfast has been the hardest, again, because I just do not like eggs. I have tried to like eggs. I don't like them. And so in the morning, sometimes I'll make bacon and then just have that for breakfast, and sometimes even for lunch. I'm finding that I'm kind of getting into a routine. I like to eat ground beef. I like to eat bacon. I like to eat a good steak. And then most of the leaner meats don't bother me. Aaron had made a pork roast of some sort, I don't remember the exact cut, in the sous vide, and we cut it open and just salted it. It was so good. It was probably like the juiciest pork that I've ever had in my entire life. It was so good and so flavorful. And so those kinds of things where it's not a super expensive cut of meat, but it just was cooked well, and it it was awesome. It was so good to eat. The other thing I found was I was making ground beef almost every day for lunchtime, like a patty or something like that. And I was finding after a little bit that the texture was starting to bother me. Like the flavor was fine, but the texture I wasn't enjoying to the point that it's like, I don't want to eat ground beef anymore. And so I took a little bit of a break from it. And then when I started eating again, I was trying to pay a little bit more attention to how I was cooking it. And I found that I think what was happening was I was leaving the middle of it a little too undercooked. By just cooking it a little bit more thoroughly into the middle, it changed the texture enough that it was much more palatable. And so that was interesting too, just paying attention to cooking style, even as what kind of meat it is, also was really important. So that was kind of eye-opening to me too. Like if there's something that I eat that I'm like, it was okay, maybe just changing the cooking style or the temperature or anything like that might make those cuts of meat a little bit more palatable, especially the less expensive meats that were, that I would try to incorporate into my diet so that it is more sustainable for me. So at the end of my week 3 check-in, I am excited to see what the end of this challenge is going to look like. I can say that even if those numbers haven't shown great changes in the measurements or my last weigh-in or whatever else, I can feel a difference in my body. I feel like I am more confident. I feel like I am more clear-headed. I feel like I am able to wear clothes from my closet that I have kind of said, I really like this, but it's just a little bit too tight. It's just a little bit too snug. And then those shirts are the ones I'm pulling out and putting on now. So like all of those things have changed, and that's really exciting for me. And I think that it is a good reminder that even if carnivore isn't a long-term diet, it is a good reset. It's a great challenge to, this is where I am at the end of it. Now, how can I maintain my body better? So going back to keto, I think is going to work really well for me. And other people may go back to different things, but saying, what, I did 30 days with no sugar. I did 30 days with no carb. Clearly, I have a little more self-control than I thought I did. Clearly, I don't have to have whatever that food is to live a good life, And I think that's where I get hung up sometimes, where it's like, oh, well, if I cut out ice cream, clearly it's not going to be amazing, or clearly I'm going to be missing out, when the reality is I just did it. I'm doing it. I'm in the process of doing it. And if I can go 30 days without those foods, I can go a long time with only having them once in a while. I can go a long time without it being an everyday thing. And that is so encouraging to me. So again, if you have any tips for core exercises, please let me know. If you are doing this challenge with me, leave me an update. I would love to hear how it's going for you. And if you're not doing it, if you have hesitations, let me know why. I went into this with a lot of hesitations, a lot of, I don't know if I can do it. Let me know. I would love to hear what's making you pause, what's making you think before you try it. Not because I'm going to try and convince you to do it, but because if I can overcome some of those, maybe that would be helpful for you too. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much again for your continued support on our channel, for me and for Erin. We really, really appreciate you guys. And keep an eye out. Week 4 final update is coming soon.